This is the reason I like to watch Charlie Kirk, his interviews, his speeches, his comments, basically a lot of his things on the media, because he addresses topics a lot of white people wouldn't like to address, and he says it with so much clarity. He's not afraid to step on toes, and for the most part he says it with so much truth. I urge you to check this one out, and we'll talk about it afterwards.
And my question has to do with affirmative action. I mentioned several times earlier. In the history of the United States, as we all know, Civil War ended in 1865, and a lot of people think that slavery ended back then, but there was another form that is called indentured servitude that lasted until around the early 1900s, and so this form sort of continued, and then we got the civil rights movement in 1965. And so my question is, given the history, there are injustices done on people of color, and do you think that they deserve some sort of reconciliation? And if so, if not with affirmative action, what form? And if affirmative action is the answer, which according to your answer earlier, not exactly what you agree with, but for what length, right? How long should it last? No, that's my question.
No, like no reconciliation, no reparations. We've already.
I like how he started. He made his point very clear. No reconciliation.
No, like no
but
reconciliation.
Pay attention to his defense.
We've already overly prioritized in society. I'll prove it to you. There is institutional black privilege in society today, and no one wants to say it out loud. Blacks can get into college with lower test scores. They get more acting contracts. They're literally in every other television commercial, right? They're allowed to, literally, if a white person says a certain word, society today, and no one wants to say it out loud. Blacks can get into college with lower test scores.
True.
They get more acting contracts.
Also
literally
true.
In every other television commercial, right? They're allowed to, literally, if a white person says a certain word, you could be completely terminated from public life, right? And so we've spent trillions of dollars post-Great Society, post the Civil Rights Act paired with the Great Society. Did any of that help? No, actually, blacks got poorer on average. And so before the Great Society, 75% of blacks growing up in America had a father and a mother in the home. Now that number is anywhere between 20 to 25%. So America got significantly less racist. We spent trillions of dollars in our urban corridor. We implemented affirmative action in our government hiring practices, in our corporate hiring practices, in our college admissions. And yet blacks on average are poorer than they were in proportion to the 1960s. What changed? And the answer is that we are not confident, we're not honestly courageous enough to empower black voices to say,
this is the very important part. I've made multiple videos saying the same thing, but I don't have a big enough audience. I feel like I've not been heard enough, but I'm so glad that he said this. Candace Owens also says this a lot, and I'm so appreciative that they said.
To empower black voices to say, hey, you have to fix the problem in your own communities. It's not about white guilt or white pandering. It's about, how about you stay with the woman you impregnate? How about you stop embracing gangster rap culture?
Right.
How about you stop listening to music that glorifies the worst part of society?
Preach.
People are afraid to say this, and Thomas Sowell wrote an entire book about it. And the affirmative action creates race resentment is what ends up happening.
Period. Like, that video could end right there. I could end that video right there, and he said everything. He's touched all the grounds. Because take for instance the police, when there's a shooting between a police and a black man. I'm not saying that I don't condone that. I'm not saying that it's good. But when that happens, everybody speaks about it. It erupts like wildfire. But when somebody is rapping about shooting and killing, black person rapping about shooting and killing a fellow black man, or even committing the act, black on black crime, nobody talks about it. It's like, oh, we were raised in a, how do they say it? So we're products of our environment. Well, change the environment. I'm not saying leave the environment. Start changing. Let the change start from you. Change the environment. Nobody says this, but I like that he says it. And he's a white man saying it. Some people might say, "Oh, you don't understand," but I'm affirming it. I second what he's saying.
And while I acknowledge that, yes, of course there were laws that were unjust in the past, we've already lived under the biggest reparations program in the history of modern society, and it's been an abysmal failure. You want to know what true liberation would look like? Black America taking responsibility for their actions and doing the 3 to 4 things that are necessary to succeed in America. Getting married before you have kids, graduating from high school, get a job, any job, and not committing crimes. This is what drives me nuts about the looting stuff, is that people say, well, it's just a matter of, it's a matter of survival. How about you stop acting like a criminal? How about you stop stealing stuff and we justify it? And the more that we do that, the more we are building a baseline of an acceptance.
Now, people might hear that and think, oh, he's calling black people criminals, but he's not speaking about the black people in its entirety, or the black community, or the black culture in its entirety. There are black people who are doing very well. I think the governors, mayors, entrepreneurs right now. I was just watching a review of the new Fiscal. I think it's a Fiscal Ocean. The CEO is a black man. The black people are doing very well. But he's not talking about that. He's talking about this neighborhoods, or this small few that are involved with this lifestyle and saying they're products of their environment, and, having a victim's mindset and saying they're in the system. Well, change it. Stop being involved in these vices so you don't be in the system. Change it. That's what he's saying. That's the people he's addressing. It's just to give you clarity.
And here's the thing. Just so we're clear, blacks make up about 12% of the American population. More specifically, black men, 6% of the American population. They're responsible for 60% of the murders.
Imagine that.
That's a thought crime. You have 6% of the American population doing 60% of the murdering. And yet white people are the problem? No. It's black privilege, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. Thank you. Appreciate it. You want to follow up? Sorry, you want to follow up?
I
Yeah.
have a short follow-up. So thank you for your response, and that was great insight. And it sounds like
I like that kid. Oh, that just warmed my heart. I like when a young man talks like that with respect. Thank you for your response. That was great insight. I like that. I do like that.
Insight. And it sounds like you're personally affected to an extent through the effects that you talked about, but through the black communities. And since we are affected, and you as well, do you think we have some sort of responsibility to sort of fix the problems on, instead of just giving our opinion, actually doing to an amount of what we can do? And if so, what would that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So here's what's amazing, is despite the fact that Asians have harder job getting into college, harder job getting high, Asians are like the wealthiest group in America by far, despite all the things that are thrown. And you might ask the question, why? Well, it's because Asian Americans stay loyally married far more than any other ethnic group. They prioritize education, and I don't want to overly generalize, but Asian moms don't put up with their kids committing crimes. Am I right? Right? A bunch of Asians looting, that dog does not hunt in the Korean American community or the Chinese American community. So, yeah, there's like strong social fabric and cultural fabric that say it's not acceptable to engage in this sort of behavior. So, no, I don't think we should ask for any special treatment. I think this, what is the goal? The goal is to do our best to try to create a society that values meritocracy and values work ethic and things you can change, not things you can't change. Thank you, man. God bless you. Thank you.
That was a very, very good speech. Very, very good. Good question, good answer. And I like that the young man wasn't there to argue and to show how more knowledgeable he is than Charlie Kirk. He was there to ask real questions and get real answers. And he's very knowledgeable too. He showed some post-slavery data, which in fact I don't think is false, but he should also remember that post-slavery is also happening in Africa, where Africans are enslaving Africans. So if you want to compare that out in America, you should also recognize the one happening within the African continent. I'm not glorifying any of those things. That's not my point. But my point is, I do appreciate that Charlie Kirk shared that message with so much clarity and without mincing words and without trying to sugarcoat anything, because I think it's at the point where people in America need to understand this with clarity. Like, when you're saying it, don't try to be nice about it. Be very clear. I saw the interview by what's his name? Is it Charleston White? I think that's his name. He said almost the same thing. That was a black man. He said almost the same thing Charlie Kirk just said right here. I don't want to quote him because I don't remember the full, like, everything he said, and I don't want to, quote him wrongly. But He stated the same thing, and this is the problem. But it's easier when we can blame it on somebody else, so it's not on us. Say it's the white man, it's the system, the white men have done this, they enslaved us. Why is it that, like he stated in the data, back in the day, the blacks were thriving more, and then now thriving less? Why? Thomas Sowell wrote an entire book on this. People haven't read it, but Thomas Sowell has been saying this for a very long time. This here is just, I don't know, this question here, this interview, this speech here was gold. If a lot more people would pay attention to this, this could fix America's problem by a mile, by a very long way. Yeah, share your thoughts, smash the like button. A lot of people are going to criticize and say that I don't understand, I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, don't know. I'm not saying I'm all knowing, so feel free to share your knowledge with me, talk to me, correct me, educate me, critique me, smoke me, whatever. I'll listen to you. I'm going to read your comments and I'll try to respond. Well, smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.